Now, he used to be an MEP. Now, he's Prime Minister. Taking office in January of this year, Latvia's new leader, Krišjānis Kariņš, has vowed to clean up his country, taking a tough stance on corruption and financial crime after Latvia faced a string of high-profile scandals. He joined me earlier on set, but first, let's take a look at what he said in his Future of Europe speech this morning.
In a couple of weeks' time, we're going to celebrate 15 years since we joined the European Union. And I can say, on behalf of my country, we have not regretted a single day since we joined the EU. But all is really not well in the EU. All of us know as politicians that there's a lot of anti-EU sentiment going around. There are politicians who are offering very simplistic answers to very complex issues. Generally, they're referred to as populists. My simple message is, don't fight the populist. It's a worthless endeavor. But try to understand, why are people listening to the populists? Why are people unhappy?
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Krišjānis Kariņš, for joining us on Raw Politics tonight. So I'll start with your speech today, this morning, in front of the MEPs here in Strasbourg. You said that all is not well in the EU. When you're talking about the future of Europe, why is it not well?
Well, the analysis I have is that there are some pretty obvious reasons. Over the past 10 years, Europe has gone through a number of crises. So remember the banking collapse in the US, which led to a banking crisis also throughout Europe. It led into an economic crisis. As we're coming out of the economic crisis, we're hit with a migrant crisis due to events outside of our control, first peaceful, then the military actions in the Middle East. And I think the result of all three of these things cumulatively has led to a political crisis insofar as many people are just not happy. And so there's fertile ground for people to...
So if you were to choose what is the biggest political threat to the European Union as you know it, what would it be?
Well, the biggest threat is that people who say that we don't need the Union at all would gain the upper hand. Because if you make an analysis on, well, why are we doing actually as well as we're doing? Why is there so much wealth created? To a large extent, it is because the EU formed the single market. Member states are working together. Internal borders have been torn down. And to tear apart the EU actually means re-establishing borders and tariffs.
And this tearing apart of the EU, this is a rhetoric that's being used by a lot of populist parties, of populist politicians. That we're seeing the rise of populist groups in a lot of local elections. You said earlier today, do not fight populism. Why not?
Because populism, or what we call populism, works only because there's underlying unease. So what I'm saying is don't fight the people, fight the underlying cause, engage the citizens that are unhappy. And what are the citizens concerned about? It seems everywhere in Europe, it's really the same basis as always. People think about jobs, people think about migration, people think about the environment, people think about security. It's the basic issues, and this is what we need to address to make the underlying causes of the unease go down.
So understanding the people, so you as a son of wartime refugees, do you understand the resistance by some Europeans who don't want very open borders in the European Union? Do you understand why they feel as such, or others voting the way they vote for populist rhetoric, populist parties?
Of course, but I also understand that it's an understandable reaction as a reaction to the migration crisis that we faced. And the problem with the migration crisis that we had is maybe not so much in the sheer numbers of people who came, but in the sense from the television and everything that no one has any control. These people are just coming and no one is controlling. And actually at the time it was mostly true. So to maintain the single market, to maintain the tariff-free trade that makes us wealthy and gives us opportunity, we need to make sure the outer border is secure.
Okay, now because Latvia occupies a very interesting and special place, I think, in Europe, along with the other Baltic states, because you were nestled between one power, Russia, on one side, and the rest of the European Union, Western Europe in particular. And now this poses, you being right in the middle of a very sensitive situation, especially when relations are not good. Let's listen to what Donald Trump said last year about this particular issue on security, especially when it comes to the Baltics.
Now, we want to be able, if possible, and this is speaking with the Baltic states, ideally we want to be able to get along with Russia. Getting along with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing. Now, maybe we will and maybe we won't. And probably nobody's been tougher to Russia than Donald Trump. 3 presidents just told me that NATO has taken in a tremendous amount of money because of Donald Trump. That would have never happened, so NATO is much stronger.
Well, Donald Trump seems to be quite confident in the security situation in the Baltics. Do you agree with him? Is he right?
Well, the security situation in the Baltics is greatly improved. First of all 3 Baltic countries are amply increasing their funding.
He says no one's been tougher on Russia than him.
I don't think I want to comment what the U.S. president is saying, but I can say for security in the Baltics, we have invested into our own security. We're spending 2% or more than 2% of the GDP. There's an enhanced forward presence of additional NATO troops coming from all over the NATO countries.
We're talking about NATO. Do you need Donald Trump?
Look, NATO is the cornerstone of Baltics' military security strategy. And the cornerstone of NATO is the U.S. So, yes, we need the U.S. to continue to be part of NATO. At the same time, we don't think that it's a bad idea for Europe to beef up its own capabilities because we don't see a contradiction, Europe versus NATO. But if Europe works with NATO, that's a good thing because for Europe to increase its own defense capabilities is good for Europe. Provided that that works hand in hand with NATO as a whole. And
you see Russia as a threat in these days?
Russia, of course, is an adversary. Militarily, not so much as at unease, because NATO is quite a powerful military alliance. But the true threat, the immediate threat from Russia is in the massive disinformation campaign.
All right, before we go, I have to ask you about Brexit. What does life after Brexit look like for Latvia and the Baltics?
Look, I think from the Latvian side, it's hard for us to really understand why anyone would really want to leave the EU. We see the benefits, the collective benefits on all aspects, but we completely respect the British decision, however Brexit pans out in the coming months. We hope for good relations with Britain afterwards, no matter what the status is. We have great trade with Britain. We have a lot of expats who live in Britain. No, what does worried mean? I don't see any reason why our relationship would be worse. I'm concerned that Brexit, at any rate, will not be good for neither the EU nor the British economy.
I think it's a concern shared by a lot here.
Yeah, that's a different concern.
All right, but thank you very much for your time, Latvian Prime Minister Krišjānis Kariņš, for joining us on the program.